And the Bills' loss, littered though, as we just showed you a few of them, critical mistakes. They turned the ball over 4 times, tied for their most in a game this season. Buffalo dropped 4 passes, fumbled 3 times, both of which are their most in a game this season. And that continues, a troubling trend for the Bills, who have turned the ball over 13 times in their last 6 games, the most turnovers by any team during that span. And as a result, Buffalo has lost 4 of its last 6 games while averaging over 14 fewer points per game than they did prior to this stretch. This dramatic music really feels appropriate for the conversation we're about to have, as we have a packed house here on NFL Live. Dan Orlovsky, Andrew Hawkins, we got Marcus Spears there, Dan Graziano here as well. But let's start with the news there, Graz. The poor play happens last night, of course, and that led to offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey being fired. How did it all go down?
Yeah, Buffalo really felt, Laura, like they had improved their offensive personnel this year. And as a result, the offense should be better than it was last year. They felt like they addressed the offensive line. For the first time since they selected Josh Allen, they took an offensive player in the first round of the draft. That was tight end Dalton Kincaid. So they felt like they would see an improvement. And as that stat just showed, first few weeks they did. But they haven't felt like they've had the consistency they want to have on offense in terms of scoring points and being consistently explosive. They also feel like Josh Allen's turnovers continue to be a problem. There was a mandate from up high, get the turnovers under control this year. They have not. So those 2 factors. And then, I think there was obviously a lot of anger in the building over the way last night played out, and then being 5-5 through 10 games. That really conspired to the point where they felt like somebody had to take the fall. They're obviously not going to fire Josh Allen for turning the ball over. So Ken Dorsey's the one who ends up taking the blame. Yeah,
that last line, interesting there, Graz. You're with us throughout this show, so stay right there. Hawk, you think that's the right move for the Bills?
Absolutely. It was the right move. They were not getting any better on a week-to-week basis, and they were playing like Josh Allen is playing holistically, which is inconsistent. And even when you look at those turnovers, a lot of that is because of their detail and their lack of attention to detail in their processes on a play-to-play. You're talking about quarterback, running back exchanges. You're talking about Josh Allen throwing deep outs to the field late and not in rhythm. And also just even how they've deployed this system. They've relied too heavily on Josh Allen just running around and slinging it down the field. So in these games where you have to be methodical and you have to pick your opportunities to take risk and push the ball, they're not able to do it. And poor execution results in poor play, and that's why they have the result they have today.
So it's a results-based business. And this is important to be said. Anytime someone loses their job in this league, it stinks. Yeah. Ken Dorsey's a smart football mind. This was needed. This offense schematically is broken. Number one, it's broken because it's the easiest in the NFL to prepare for right now. It's outrageously predictable. It's not what it was in the first 3 or 4 weeks. And that stretch that we had, that graphic in the first 4 weeks, how good they were on offense, they majored in putting Josh Allen under center, and they ran a ton of play-action pass. They didn't do enough of it last night. Look at that right there, almost 10 yards per play, whether run or pass from under center. So they didn't do that enough. Also, when they get into their 2-by-2 formation, we talked about that last week. Not only is that predictable, they really run 2 things. It's either a little bit slant-flat RPO, or it's a short end to Stephon Diggs. That's him at the bottom of the screen. You don't think Surtain? Look at where he's in. He's inside leverage, waiting for the short end, jabbing. He's not open. Dump it off to the back. Now, realistically, that's a 1 or 2 yard gain. But it turns into this 8-yard gain because James Cooks makes something out of nothing. And that's one of the issues that has presented itself with this offense is if everybody executes at a level of 10, they'll play well because they're really talented in some positions. Yep. But the expectation that they would all execute at that level of 10 consistently is unrealistic. There was never any schematic advantage to the players, and that started to show itself week by week too much.
I dig it, Dan. We talked about Ken Dorsey and the lack of creativity, but I'm going to take another angle to this conversation when it comes to Ken Dorsey losing his job. Could we surmise that he doesn't trust his quarterback? I think that's realistic when we start talking about the inconsistency of Josh Allen. I know the creativity part is completely different than what I'm talking about. But 2 weeks ago, we showed a shot that he took in the hole and threw an interception. This week, we show an out route, and he throws another pick. Sometimes decision-making has to overcome when you're not in favorable situations. Let me say this again. I do believe that this was needed with Ken Dorsey. We saw the success of Josh Allen when he had Brian Daboll, and everybody's going to go back to that. But I think we need to also have a conversation about the potential limitations of what you can do and be asking your quarterback to do. Like you said, simple. Did they simplify because they worried about him making bad decisions and throwing in bad places and putting the ball in harm's way? And here's the other thing, Dan. I watched a 4th and 1 last night where they lined up in shotgun and they needed to convert and they dropped back and threw a pass. Tell me what you were thinking. I wanted to pull my TV out the screen.
Yeah, I hated it. Number one, it's 4th and 1. If you're going to get in the shotgun with Josh Allen, there has to be some element of quarterback run or zone read. I don't mind that situation, Marcus. If you're in 4th and 1 and you're in drop back football, shotgun pass, you're making it at least 4th and 6 because you're taking the ball 5 yards deeper than it has to be in your shotgun alignment. I want to push back on the not trusting Josh thing. This is where I'm coming from, Marcus. Because everyone will throw out these numbers that this offense is actually okay. I disagree with that. They've got players that mask that. One of the areas they severely struggle in is creating explosive plays, right? Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why I think we're seeing some forces from Josh, like that, the whole shot interception you're talking about, or that ball right before the half, when you are only being asked to kind of play like dink and dunk quarterback and you're a stallion, it's boring. There's no schematic thing to let's try to push. No, Marcus, I'm telling you, that's a real. In my eyes, that's a real thing. When you just play shotgun, dump the ball off football, as a quarterback, you're sitting there going, how do we create explosive plays? If we're not going to call things to create explosive plays, you feel incumbent upon yourself to generate those explosive plays.
You my OC, and I'm your quarterback, and I got a tremendous amount of talent, but I have to manage you. Like, they have to manage Josh Allen.
I think they have to manage his competitiveness. Yes, I think that's fair.
And what he will try to do and put his team in harm's way. It's a legitimate conversation that needs to be had about not only his decision making, but do you have to coach around that? Like, I get the explosive plays and I get scheming up things to push the ball downfield. We know that he has an elite arm and he can do that. But Josh Allen throws too many interceptions, bro, and it limits sometimes what you can do with him.
Okay, so I'm curious of Graz's take on this, what you're hearing along the lines, Graz, the theory that maybe Ken Dorsey didn't trust Josh Allen.
Yeah, I don't think that holds up. You got to remember, they didn't bring Ken Dorsey in from outside the organization when Brian Daboll left. Dorsey was Josh Allen's position coach starting in Allen's 2nd year in the league. Daboll and Dorsey helped develop and create Josh Allen together, and the relationship there is extremely strong. So I don't think that that's really what's going on. If anybody would know about Josh Allen's limitations regarding the interceptions and all that, it would be number 1 Daboll, number 2 Dorsey, who've basically been with him his whole career. So I think schematically is where the Bills felt like Dorsey was falling down or not living up to what they wanted him to be. I think Josh Allen is what he is, and nobody on that staff would know that better than Dorsey.
And for me, this boils down simply to this. Number one, wildly predictable. They run the same 4 or 5 plays, pass or run. Number 2, they do very little pass game to get Stephon Diggs as the focal point in their pass game. And 3, they don't do the things that make every one of their players on offense better, and they major in the things that they do not excel at.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about, what is their foundation on a week-to-week basis?
They don't have an identity.
What is the thing that you're like, hey, if all else fails, we can depend on this thing?
Josh's
to your point
playmaking.
about Dorsey, there's not a single player you can argue that is at their very best under this offense. And when you talk about the turnovers, to both Graz and Marcus's point, where I'll help kind of push back, is that whenever you have those kind of turnovers that are process-oriented, detail-oriented, that means you are not putting that in on a weekly basis, making it an emphasis, and also holding your players to a standard and to an accountability that this can't happen because it happens way too consistently for the Buffalo Bills.
Fellas, I get it. I understand it. I get y'all schematically. I'm not contesting that at all. But Josh Allen is out there throwing them interceptions, okay? And we ask, like, some of those interceptions, yes, Gabe Davis goes through his hands. The dude has so many turnovers. We are not going to go past that. I don't care who calling plays. He turns the football over. And you know what happens when your quarterback is prone to turn the football over? You call games differently. That's my experience since Pee Wee football. Like, he has an issue of giving it away.